Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Monday, December 29th, 2025. Time to do this whole thing all over again, even though right in the middle of these Christmas to New Year holidays, when they fall right in the middle of the week like this, I don't even know what day it is. I have to look it up, make sure that we have the day and the day right. It's right in front of me, so that's lucky, because otherwise I have no idea what day it is. It feels like it's been forever since we were last on the air, but that's not even true. It feels like forever since Greg's been on the air, and that's not even true. It just feels like a long time. A lot has passed, and a lot of chaos has accrued, so lots to catch up on, even though it's actually kind of a slow week. But, chaos world, that's the way it's going to be. And, of course, lots of buttons to press and make sure that things are working. And I don't know, in addition to feeling like we've been off the air for a long time, it feels like I haven't, operated all these buttons somehow. I don't know. So maybe the headspace from the cold isn't helping either. But I've got some tea at hand and a new, fresh resupply of tea, thanks to Scott, for the annual resupply. I have teas of the world available to me today, although I'm still working off the collection of previous years as well and enjoying it. But just today it's medicinal for its purposes today. All right, well, lots to wrap up, as I said. And, this is an idea. This is where I needed to be. Greg and I spoke just ahead of the show, and I didn't get a chance to isolate the sound that I really need here, but maybe this would be this is the fanfare we really need. Oh, my goodness. Although it's a little too loud. And it doesn't really work. But I'm trying to get at the old Ricola commercials. But apparently it wants to play on a loop and doesn't want to allow any sort of modulation of the volume levels today. So maybe not so much in terms of your useful fanfare. But okay, let's just get right into it, because I'm going to need all the rest I can get, I think. Greg, good morning. How are you feeling today?
Good morning. Well, I feel fine.
Well, good.
I don't have a computer virus because my computer got vaccinated, so we're good.
Very nice. Yes. Yeah, I'm hoping that this isn't flu. I got my vaccination, but as I understand it, there's a little bit of a weird strain out there. But I know your test, right? Yeah, no, I don't think I'd be on the air.
yeah, if you didn't feel like you got hit by a truck, it's not the flu.
Yeah, no, I'm just, okay, well, I don't want any of it, but I've got what I've got. Okay.
Yeah.
So we lean in and use the warm
Right. So let's
tones.
talk about Jeffrey Epstein, because who doesn't want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein?
Yes, if we're going to be sick, we might as well talk about
Jeffrey Epstein.
Ah.
There's a columnist for the Washington Post named Jason Willick. I don't know if you ever heard of him. I can't tell you with certainty that I've ever read him.
Yeah, me neither. Doesn't ring a bell.
But I read him today because he's awful.
That doesn't mean anything. Oh.
And in fact, he's so awful. The title of my pundit roundup today is "Bad Pundits Help Illustrate How Valuable Good Journalism Is."
Oh. Well, yeah, in the negative, sure.
So you don't have to spend a whole lot of time in this piece. It's so awful you don't have to read it either. That's why I do the pundit roundups.
That's exciting.
Have to,
okay.
Right? And the title is "The Epstein Files Fiasco Was Completely Foreseeable." And he makes the case that this document dump is going really badly. And the reason it's going badly is the Justice Department has been betrayed, because that's not their mission, you see. Their mission is to capture the bad guys, and document dumping isn't what they do. So, of course, they screwed everything up. What? It was expected, and it's the fault of those bipartisan people who kept pushing them to do so.
Yeah, you know how it is with bipartisans. I understand he has said those things.
Yeah. Needless to say, he writes, the Justice Department is not set up for document dumps. It's set up to investigate crimes. You're supposed to play like War in the FBI or one of those Prokofiev background things from the 1940s. Build cases and punish those responsible, as if that's what they do. As if Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are actually doing their jobs in a good faith effort. But now Congress's herd of independent minds has ordered the department to toss its records into the political maelstrom, overriding grand jury secrecy and witness expectations of privacy. even though all the victims are clamoring for this. He ignores that part. And he ignores the part about the Department of Justice, the infinitely wise, weary, but trying to do their job anyway and keep their heads down. Department of Justice somehow or other moved Ghislaine Maxwell to a minimum security place where she gets to be with cats and dogs and fancy dinners and get
What
her
have the cats and
toenails
dogs done?
done, you know. And but the Justice Department just is trying to do their job. It's really infuriating. And in fact, it's so infuriating you have to contrast that with an actual journalist who's doing their job. This is Julie K. Brown, and she's writing. She, of course, is a Miami Herald journalist who started the series Perversion of Justice, which she made into a book. An unsparing look at how Jeffrey Epstein got away with his crimes in South Florida, a lot of which is in these Epstein files, and that's one of the things that Julie K. Brown wants to get to. That's why they're being released, you see. And so you could see who was responsible for the sweetheart deal besides an attorney in Florida, Attorney General in Florida named Acosta.
Yeah.
She wants to know who else. But, of course, their names are all blacked out because the Justice Department is trying to defend the lawyers because that's not what the law says, but they're doing it anyway. So her Substack today is really interesting because it has the title, since she's going through these files, you see. My flights are in the Epstein files.
Yeah, I saw that being
Why
shared
is a
on
flight
social media.
itinerary I
What
booked
is
in
that?
June 2019? Trump was president at the time. That was also his Justice Department. Part of the files.
That is a good question.
Why don't you ask Jason Willick? He has a pretty good idea what the Justice Department does and doesn't do, apparently.
Oh.
He writes columns about it. So I expected my name to be in the Epstein files, she writes, since Miami Herald published the series Perversion of Justice. And that series led prosecutors in the Southern District of New York to open a criminal probe. That's what journalists are supposed to do. Afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. That's what they're supposed to do. Just days, she writes, after the series ran in late November 2018, gives a link, and there are plenty of references to my stories in the Epstein files. But what I didn't expect to see was an American Airlines flight record from 2019 with my full name on them, including my maiden name, which I don't use professionally. It's an unusual name, so it's pretty clear to me that it's me.
Okay.
The document appears to be details of an itinerary for a series of flights I booked in July just before Southern District of New York and FBI arrested Epstein. The itinerary was among about 6 to 8 others, including an August 2019 flight for Ghislaine Maxwell. Most of the names attached to the other itineraries are redacted. This could perhaps be because they were victims' names. They're all attached to a grand jury subpoena signed in February 2020 by a records custodian for American Airlines. Where was that going? Well, this is a flight booked to interview Epstein victims Maria and Annie Farmer. As it turned out, I was unable to go. The night before I was set to travel, we learned Epstein was arrested. He was set to appear in court. Maria Farmer, who was the first to report Epstein to the FBI in 1996, and her younger sister Annie were both sexually assaulted by Epstein and Maxwell. I had hoped to interview them for my series. My editor made the decision for me to fly to New York for Epstein's arraignment instead, so I never took those flights. I have no idea whether the DOJ was monitoring me or whether it was monitoring Annie and Maria. Either way, the Department of Justice has some explaining to do. I'm not sure why they would have been monitoring any of us during this time span.
Yeah, monitor the guy you're investigating.
Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, this is like Martin Luther King is in the FBI files. Why would you want to know about that?
Well, that one, at least I understand the story of it. I'm not certain where they're going with monitoring her.
Well, why were they monitoring Martin Luther King?
Well, yeah. I guess I assume they were monitoring him actually to ruin him, to attempt to do that.
Well,
and I guess that's what they're doing here.
So what's your question again?
I guess the prominence is between the two of them. I mean, you know, she's a good reporter, but
if you're Donald Trump and you're worried about the Epstein files, she's about as prominent as they come.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. He read something.
Look, I'm not saying that this is proven. I'm just saying you got some explaining to do.
Yeah, they definitely do at that. It's amazing that they can get their acts together enough to figure out, you know, who's writing about them because they're not great readers.
Yeah. Well, she must have been on TV.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that could be it. I wonder if that's it. Well, well, what can I tell you? There's no reason why that should be in the files. Although it'll be interesting to watch other people who are in the files for different reasons point to that and say, see, that just goes to show you that just because your name is in the files doesn't mean you're guilty of anything. Well, right. I don't know. This is
picked up by the Independent in England.
Yeah.
By the way, I mean it's such an important point here. Mm-hmm. Why was the DOJ tracking an investigative journalist who covered Epstein? Democrats demand answers. Miami Herald reporter Julie K. Brown and House Democrats ask why details of a flight taken by Brown were found among the Epstein files. So now Democrats are asking about it. House Oversight Committee is asking about it. And important that they do. That's the whole point of follow-up. That's the whole point of government surveillance and oversight. You know, surveillance in the best possible terms. Like, it's your job to keep track of what these clowns are doing.
Yeah. Wow.
And do something about it.
Oh, well. I mean, that is their job, but good luck.
The Independent, the paper, has contacted the DOJ for comment. I haven't, but they have. They haven't commented to me, but apparently they haven't commented to them either.
That's right. Well, you didn't contact them, so they're not going to tell you.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe listen to the podcast and call in. But
all right.
Anyway, that's the story.
Yeah. To say the least. Yes, lots of releases of, and I think it was right just before the weekend, but after your last appearance on the show, right in the middle of the week, that they said, we've, by the way, found and have never reviewed before, but also have somehow redacted 1 million additional pages that, I don't know, for some reason was never in the files that we shared with anyone.
But was reported to the FBI in January, according to the documents that go with it.
Well, pretty soon
they knew about
January.
it all this time and didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. Pretty soon. They were waiting for this January to come around so that they could cause confusion. So we just found them. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
In January. It says that right now. Well, it's December, so it came out a little early. I mean, I don't know why you excuse any of the column you were reading at first, right? Made no sense in terms of trying to excuse the methodology of the disclosure. They know how to arrange documents for sharing with courts.
Nobody's
and
ever
public.
Asked the Department of Justice for documents before, apparently.
Right. Yeah.
I can't believe they're starting
They just don't know
now.
what to do with documents at this department. It's so weird. It's, you know how departments are. They're all action and weightlifting. Like, all right. This documentation is kind of what they're all about. Every department.
But, this being a slow news week because of the holidays and such, the response from Trump about all of this is, well, there's only one thing to do: release any Democrats who are in the file and embarrass them. That's a quote. Embarrass them.
Yeah. Why?
I want them released. I want them embarrassed. You work for me. I told you what to do. Now go do it.
Yeah. Well, I guess with any document release of this size, there's definitely going to be all sorts of redaction mistakes in both directions, under redactions, over redactions. But I so far I don't think. I wonder if he sits there thinking, yeah, this is good. We're embarrassing them. We're doing a great job.
No, he sits there and thinks, what the hell am I supposed to do, you moron?
I guess so. Right.
That's what he thinks.
And and then posts 200
what do you want
times.
From me? Why do you keep talking about this? Leave me alone.
Right. Just look at and instead focus on me painting the back of my hand every day. Yeah. So
anyway.
Yep.
Always a depressing thing to talk about Trump. Let's talk about something uplifting. This is from The Guardian. We're doing a lot of Brit newspapers today because I think our newspapers are like...
I guess it's not working, yeah.
So The Guardian has this piece. How effective is protesting? According to historians and political scientists, very.
Okay. Good news.
Just so you know.
Not everybody thinks so, but as it turns out, historically, yes.
Yeah,
it really is true. From where? Oh, I think you've hit a button somewhere. I don't hear you. Oh, there you are, huh? Okay, gotcha.
Wasn't me.
No? Well, I didn't even move. I haven't moved in 10 minutes.
It's not me.
Well, okay, we may have had
I was in Maryland at the time.
I see. I have just seen a little, your internet connection is unstable sign.
Oh. Mine or yours?
I think I'm just unstable generally.
Relevant people want to know.
Yeah.
Inquiring minds want to know.
All right.
So, I don't know.
What, did you say something brilliant?
No, I just was saying from emancipation to women's suffrage, civil rights to Black Lives Matter, mass movement has shaped the arc of American history.
All right, I'll buy that.
Protest has led to the passage of legislation that gave women the right to vote, banned segregation, legalized same-sex marriage, and no wonder they hate it. It has also sparked cultural shifts in how Americans perceive things like bodily autonomy, economic inequality, racial bias, but there's ways to sharpen and there's ways to blunt the impact. Here's what decades of research tell us about what protests can and cannot do. Can't get rid of your cold.
No, although I do protest it.
Well,
yeah, I'm totally
it works, but it takes a week.
That's pretty good timing for, quick turnaround for a protest.
Exactly. Protests can affect elections. The national protest, the Women's March, got Donald Trump unelected, which is good. In 2020, that protest started in 2017.
Yeah, it could have started in,
by the same
70s.
token, localities that saw greater participation during the 2009 Tea Party protests witnessed more Republican support during the 2010 midterms. One study finds. And this shows the outside impact a single protester can have. That's because having one more attendee at a demonstration rally can rally more support for a political cause than acquiring one more vote during an election.
Okay.
There's something called the 3.5% rule. If 3.5% of a population protests against the regime fails. Developed by political scientists Erica Chenoweth and Maria Stephen.
Hard to believe.
Researched several resistance campaigns from 1900 to 2006. The rule's seen renewed interest in leftist circles, especially after the No Kings protests. It looks like a magic number, said one of the authors, Chenoweth, and it's also a surprisingly modest number. According to Chenoweth, the number refers to peak, not cumulative participation. So it's not an absolute number. Even nonviolent campaigns can succeed with less participation, but it's a helpful rule of thumb.
Yeah, it's a good reminder, and I guess I would think about that alongside the number of contacts from constituents that congressional offices say it takes to move them on an issue or to put an issue on the radar for senator or congressman. It's not an infinitely high number. No, it's a very low number, and that honestly, if you get 10 contacts in a single day about a particular issue, eyebrows raised. What is this? We got to take a look at this.
Get 20. I'll assign a name to it.
Right. So it takes almost nothing to move them to awareness. It doesn't mean that they're going to help you or vote your way or do anything in particular.
Longest journey starts with smallest step.
Yeah.
Awareness is that small step.
The 3.5% thing, I mean, I've definitely heard that number before, and I think it's also, it's even been absorbed on the right-wing side with the 3%ers over there. I think that's what moves them. Is they think they're going to have the 3% on their side. And I guess if all you have to get is 3%, it's possible.
They
so
think
look
that
out.
3% participated originally in overthrowing the Brits,
Right. Well, the British
so they don't call
lazy.
themselves a 3.5% movement.
Right. That's true. That's the Democrats. Well, I don't know, 3. We probably should go for like 3.5, I would think.
Yeah, but 3.5 is more.
Just to be careful. Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's the other guys at Trump like, we could probably get by with 2.5 and just, fudge it from there. Anyway, no, we're overdoing it.
So they bring up Freedom Summer in 1964. Okay. They bring up the fact that nonviolence is the key and that it gets more people civically engaged. People were part of the ACT UP movement to raise awareness of and demand research into HIV/AIDS in the 80s and 90s, continue to feel validated years later, having participated in such an impactful movement. It reshaped the kind of identity and emotional context in which some of the protesters were protesting, said some of the original folks involved. And that's a key thing. And protests rarely incite policy or cultural changes overnight. Often the rates of impact are more gradual, just like it takes protests a while to cure your cold.
Always. That's true.
Yeah,
but
so these things take time.
So 3.5% of the American population is roughly about 11.5 million.
Right.
I mean, and it isn't like, well, if we punch that many tickets, Trump has to leave. He just has to. But
you know,
get the idea.
conservative influencers on social media also use the 3.5 rule. I don't know if you're aware of this.
No.
3.5% of what we say is true. Let God Almighty sort it out.
That could be. I can believe that easily enough. But I do think that rule or something like it, some understanding similar to it, is probably behind a lot of the otherwise inexplicable, weird bot activity and AI-generated account activity where they're just trying to essentially fake their way to the 3.5%. Or make it look like it's a popular idea when it
I
isn't.
thought the 3.5% worked differently. I thought, like, of all the bots and weird accounts you read on the right, only 3.5% are actually real.
That could also be true. I mean, that's generally. I think that's just coincidence. It happens to be the same number, but
happens to be the same number. Okay.
But yeah, that's. I think that's been the aim of a lot of the extreme right and alt-right back in the day when we used that term. It was to, if it really only takes mobilizing 3.5%, I wonder if, or they would say, I bet we can generate that artificially or make people believe that there's 3.5% of the people out there. Although it's a pretty unbelievable number, quite honestly. How could you move a whole country with 3.5% of the population?
Well, special elections, that's who shows up. Right?
Well, that's true. But yeah, we have an enormous amount of people in this country and an enormously apathetic populace for the most part, where we've kept everybody pretty happy with consumerism, and then Trump is ruining that. So maybe we'll get to that 3.5%. Everything is that much more expensive.
Well, that's where it's good to, step back and look at the big picture. After all, it is the end of the year, and time to sum up.
Yeah,
and it's true that Donald Trump historically has motivated people to get out and vote, but it's also true that, like with the Women's March and No Kings, he's also, stimulated many people to oppose him, and probably more of those than the ones who vote for him. And that's why whenever he does get in power, protests spike.
Yeah.
And people don't like what he's doing. And that's pretty clear. So Trump is in his second term. Yes, he won the election, probably because even though they suppressed their autopsy on what happened, probably because Biden ran and he shouldn't have. And the reason they suppressed it, most likely, in my opinion, is because it names names about people urging Biden to run when he shouldn't have. Mm-hmm. He was not popular with the public, even though, he was a generic Democrat and his program was okay, but the economy was not great. He didn't blame COVID and Trump enough for that. It cost him at the ballot box. Harris was running with that legacy, if you will, baggage, if you will, and she couldn't overcome that. Trump wins a second term. People still don't necessarily like him, but they do get sucked into the idea that what he's telling us, not what he's going to do, but what he's telling us sounds okay. I'm all right with that, and as long as he fixes the economy, I guess I could live with it. Turns out he can't fix the economy. He can make it worse, and they can't live with the rest of it, and that's where we're at now. So I just thought I'd summarize last year for you.
Okay, I feel like I missed it, but now I'm on board.
Now you're back.
Yeah,
you're so back. As the reporter said when Trump got reelected, and they were just happy they had something to talk about, and the press rooms were packed because Trump is just so interesting, and we have stuff to write about. And Julie K. Brown is a real journalist. Jason Wellick is just an opinion columnist. But journalists in general have not really covered themselves in glory, let's say, over the last year with the second Trump term. Do they have a chance to turn it around? Not really, because the people they work for don't want it. So not going to happen. Okay.
Well, they're covering themselves in something.
Hey, you know what Americans hate?
I have a few
Artificial
ideas.
Intelligence.
Oh yeah, that's true.
This is a report from Politico magazine.
Okay.
Americans hate AI. Which party will benefit? Party insiders are divided on how to channel Americans' growing fear of AI, and that's Democrats. Okay. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer posts a lighthearted video on social media, Christmas shopping, or touting her administration's accomplishments, and immediately the comments start rolling in. Say no to data centers in the state. Stop construction. All I want for Christmas is legislation banning data centers in Michigan.
Really?
It's this is true grassroots, stuff, and national figures and local figures are starting to notice this.
It is showing up in a lot of different contexts, and lately, I mean, even if you don't have any particular feeling about AI one way or another, people are getting annoyed as they learn that the capacity of the electric grid in their area and their capacity of their electric company to supply them with power is compromised by the multiplication of these things.
And therefore your bills go up. I mean, that alone is stuff that you could wind up working with as a political party.
Yeah.
The gist of the article and the consensus among the professionals is it's likely the Democrats will catch on about 2 elections too late.
Oh, all right. Seems like a good amount of time.
But I'm just bringing it up, traffic in Northern Virginia. You know what? It's an issue. You may not think it's an issue. You may think that what's happening overseas in some embassy somewhere is way more important. But, the people in Northern Virginia, traffic is number one issue.
By the way, so is data centers. I mean, I actually am. We're surrounded by gigantic data centers here. It's people who
up
visit
the electricity and raising your rates, are they?
Yes. Well, people who visit come through and say, "What are all these enormous buildings, like windowless things that are around?" And I have to explain what they are. Although it's interesting now they design them to look like they might be office buildings of some kind. They make like fake
They're
windows.
pumping stations. They pump electricity uphill.
Oh my
gosh. Just like the old aqueducts did.
Well, yeah. So, but there's been a lot of writing about how they're doubling and tripling people's electric bills. I don't think we've seen it quite like that here, but everywhere you go. And then, of course, just the annoyance of having them push an AI assistant on you for everything. Your dishwasher has got to have AI. No, we never wanted that, but they are putting it everywhere because they need to sell it.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Coast, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Greg is appearing on my screen as a cow. We would be sharing this with you, although I saw an article over the weekend. I didn't set it aside because it's not super important, but apparently almost as annoying as including AI and everything is the pivot to video in podcasting. It's apparently a real annoyance for people as people, I guess, less experienced in doing audio podcasting come to rely on the video part of it, and then people they don't want to sit and stare at the screen for all that time. They want to listen to it on their
So we're ahead of the curve,
and they miss everything.
Way ahead of the curve.
Right. Except, so when we move over to it, we'll have to remember to everybody. Well, I now have to tell you that he is a cow.
Yeah.
Because if you're not watching, right, you got to
but only for this week.
Yep. Okay.
So just to finish up on AI, the interesting thing is that, and you were starting to say, the investor class is really interested in this.
Oh, my God.
Because what will happen is by putting money into AI, you can drive people out of work. Save money by cutting your workforce. As a friend of mine, friend in loose terms, we went to school together, but at the time he was a decent guy, explained to me he's now a venture capitalist.
Oh, I see.
And he says, listen, you just have to understand. You just have to understand it or you're never going to understand that when you look at a spreadsheet, you have assets and liabilities, and salaries and payroll are a liability.
Yeah.
Period. End of sentence.
Right. So
if you don't understand
these are the job
you'll
creators.
never understand what happens. Right. So if you're trying to make money, what you're going to do is you're going to try to decrease your liabilities. Period.
Yes. We've been over that, and you've told me that story before, and it does illustrate things pretty well. If you're selling whatever it is you're invested in to politicians, if you need their help in doing what you're doing, or you just want to make your competition illegal, or whatever it is you're trying to do, you say, this is a job creator. And it may be
it's
temporarily.
An asset, because we're talking about voters.
Right. So for you, it's a job creation.
It's a voter happiness machine.
Right. Whereas, in reality, they're looking to get rid of those jobs as soon as possible. It may be
I want to make money on this
creator.
newspaper. There's only one way to do it. Buy the paper and fire everybody.
Yeah. Or at least that's the thinking. That's what they teach you, I guess, in business school. And that
you don't really need all these people. We'll just hire Jason Willick to write all the columns.
I guess so. I spent a little bit of time last night. People were passing this story around from TechCrunch, which, I don't read it normally. I'm not a tech person, but every once in a while something like that breaks through. And it's a home security company that, I guess, for the moment, aims to market to the ultra wealthy. Yeah, sure. Okay. I guess that's a market decision that you can make. But I think that they were mostly being passed around because it was yet another company that had decided to name itself after something from Lord of the Rings, which is a really super hot trend at the moment.
Yeah, Palantir.
Right. So what I think is happening in this case is a little bit different, but at any rate, but not that much different. But so I guess what made people laugh was they had chosen, this is a home security monitoring company, and they just thought people will love it if we call ourselves Sauron. Like S-A-U, or say Sauron, I'm not certain, but, that's the bad guy. And you don't even have to be that into the movies or the books or whatever to know
right?
You've chosen
Dark
the wrong
Tower
guy.
Associates.
Yeah. Right. So they've chosen,
Well, these guys look legitimate.
I am beginning to think that it's possible that CEOs and whoever's making the name choices have figured out, if you choose a name from Lord of the Rings, these two wackos over here, Peter Thiel and Mark Anderson, will give you money. And a lot of it. They'll just, those guys are on the same page as us because...
Interestingly, I looked at their corporate structure.
No, you didn't.
And they don't have a CEO. They have a Witch King. Okay, let's invest.
Yeah. And I don't know, it translates into money. So on the one hand, I think this trend is stupid. On the other hand, how come I'm not naming my thing after the Lord of the Rings and saying I need money? It works, apparently. It must, because the rest of the article was about how they had been given $18 million to start their company, and they were like, yeah, what's our product exactly? Like, what comes in the box? Does anybody know? I don't know. We got to figure that out. That's what the $18 million is for. Right. Wow, I got to start that business.
We breed and domesticate Nazguls. Come on, invest.
I got no idea, honestly. I just pick a page at random, take a name that looks funny, and that's your company. And apparently you can do $18 million if you have a PowerPoint.
Yeah, then go bankrupt and, what can you do?
Right. Everybody's fired. That's what you wanted in the first place. I get to keep the stuff. So, I don't know. It was quite ridiculous. It reminds me of every other one of these boom and bust cycle things, .com booms, or everybody.
These guys have only read, 2 books, the Lord of the Rings series. I guess so. And
there's 3 of those.
That's it.
And they've only read 2. So
and they've only read the last chapter.
Yeah.
So there it is.
I can't quite figure it out, but the secret seems to be PowerPoint. I don't know why I'm not spending more time on that thing.
Right. Next story I have for you.
All right.
And there aren't very many more. It's really
well good.
There's not that much to talk about here. Congress is not in session, so you can't make fun of the speaker because nobody's listening. We have a speaker, but we have no listeners. That's the problem.
Too much speaking.
Too much speaking, not enough listening. This is the New York Times. Suspect confessed to planting pipe bombs near the Capitol before January 6th. Remember, if you pardon everybody on January 6th, doesn't help this guy. He did it on January 5th.
Yeah, the confession
The Virginia
doesn't help a lot
man,
either.
remember, he's from Virginia, must have had traffic
Right.
problems. The Virginia man arrested this month on charges of placing 2 pipe bombs in Washington on the night before a pro-Trump mob stormed the Capitol on January 6th has given a detailed confession according to court papers released Sunday night. That was last night. In the first public hint of a motive, the document said that the man, Brian J. Cole Jr., felt he needed to, quote, speak up, end quote, after he began to suspect that the 2020 election in which President Trump was defeated had been tampered with.
I see.
By 3.5% of the population. The papers, filed by Justice Department and Federal District Court in Washington, gave an extensive description of Mr. Cole's initial interview with the FBI after his arrest. At first, Mr. Cole denied anything till they showed him video, and then he said, yes, I did it.
What? That video? That nobody could figure out for 5 years? He confessed on the strength of that? That's definitely you. I don't know. You have never believed it was
you.
me.
I'm telling you, it's you. Okay, it's me. The question of who planted the pipe bombs on the night before the Capitol was attacked has long stood as a kind of Rorschach test for wider views about the events of January 6th. For years, conspiracy theorists have seized on the pipe bomb case, alleging shadowy government forces had planted the explosive as a distraction. The arrest of Mr. Cole, who has no apparent connections to the government, clearly contradicted these conspiracy theories, even though they had long been promoted by some of the very same FBI officials unveiling a breakthrough, including Dan Bongino. That's what's so funny.
Yes.
Who, by the way, has recently announced he's resigning. In his interview with federal agents, Mr. Cole insisted he had never been an openly political person, but he also told investigators, as he began to follow the 2020 presidential race, he started to feel as if something as important as voting in the federal election is being tampered with. Somebody needs to speak up. Mr. Trump repeatedly claimed without evidence that there was fraud in the results. They don't directly tie him to Trump. They simply say he's repeating what Trump said.
Okay.
Okay, just so you
and
know.
No one
They're
else.
not saying he did it. They're not saying he did it because of Trump. The paper said Mr. Cole had told the FBI people up top, people on both sides should not ignore the grievances of ordinary citizens or call them conspiracy theorists, bad people, Nazis, or fascists.
Okay. But you are one.
But something
But you
just
shouldn't
happened
call
after
me
watching everything, just everything getting worse, according to the documents. He wanted to do something to the parties because they were in charge. So he planted pipe bombs at both parties. Now, it's interesting that Mr. Cole has taken on so much of what's out there on social media, including the whole both sides thing. It's just, that seeps in. That wasn't the intent, but both sides seeps in sometimes.
Even to bombers.
Yeah.
Okay. What? Well, I mean, that's a bit of a bad
I
joke.
don't have this in my list I sent you because I really didn't pull it out, but it just reminds me. Speaking of Mr. Both Sides, Chris Elizabeth was on social media yesterday defending Barry Weiss.
Of course.
What if I told you it was reasonable for people to take judicious time to make sure a story is correct? What's wrong with that?
Nothing is wrong with that.
That's not what she did.
Right, yeah.
But this is like Jason Wilk writing in the Washington Post about the Department of Justice. You have to credulously assume good faith to start with. And I read those set of tweets, and I'm thinking to myself, here's a guy looking for a job with corporate media.
Yes. Well, have you tried starting a company
he's currently not
and
working
naming it after
for
Lord of the
corporate
Rings?
media, even though he used to.
Right. He was just
fired in the Washington Post, and then I
it.
think he was on CNN for a while. I can't remember where he was, but not there anymore.
I don't know. All right.
But that's okay. If that's the kind of stuff that he produces, drivel, both sides stuff,
right.
It's okay if he doesn't have a job right now.
Yeah, and if you're looking to make it big, I would recommend check Lord of the Rings out of the library, open a page, put your finger down, start that company. What does it make? I don't care. Doesn't matter. $18 million is yours. Just claim it. I need to get a copy of the book each day and just on the air, just tell the people you're starting this company.
Yeah. Well,
that doesn't look good.
It's a great series of books, and you should read them. And if you haven't haven't read them in a long time, it's a good reread.
I didn't read them as business
But
plans.
at the same time, while you do this, you might get an idea for a new company.
Yeah.
At least the title.
And if you do, you'll be the only one. All I'm looking for is a name. If you have an idea, it's great. You should see it. Well, I don't know. Maybe I can spend time dissecting this TechCrunch article later, but oh my God. I can't figure out what's a company anymore. How is this a company? What do you make? I don't know. Well, what are you here for? Why do you have so many people working here? What are they doing? Trying to figure out what to make.
Well, it reminds me that, one way you make money by doing things that you would think, really, you make money doing that, is, specking out websites and their URLs.
Oh.
Well, what do you actually make? Well, I make people buy them from me because I take, for example, the Trump Kennedy Center.com or TrumpKennedyCenter.org, both of them, and then I own them and they don't, and if they want to use them, they have to pay me, and that's how I make a living.
Pretty
and who
good,
did that?
though.
A comedian.
Yeah, well,
a year ago said,
smart.
He's definitely going to do this. He's got the kind of ego
that's a hell of a prediction. I mean, interestingly, you could have made more money by taking that to the prediction markets where you can bet on such things, but I don't know.
What do you do? Oh, I have people bet on stuff, and
yes.
I make money doing that because everybody knows if you bet on stuff, you make money because the house always wins.
Yeah, I mean, that's usually the rule. The only issue is can you build a house? I don't know. But I guess if you're doing online transactions, if you charge people ahead of time and say, I've got your money, I might actually pretend there's a bet going on here and watch and figure out whether you won or not. Right. But I might also just steal your money. That's a pretty good business.
I found that story. It's a former South Park writer bought Trump Kennedy Center URLs in anticipation of venue renaming.
That's funny.
And
good call.
It is kind of a funny concept. But,
I don't know if I had that on my radar. I mean, if he had suggested it, I would have said, oh, yeah, he probably would. I mean, I guess he'd rename everything that he can. What else do we think he might rename? But it takes some imagination to start thinking ahead and then to do something like this, to buy the URL. That's a good idea.
Well, I'm going to buy the URL of every name that's in the Lord of the Rings. Somebody's going to want it someday.
That is a good idea also.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, great idea if you're already a billionaire and it doesn't matter to you how much you spend.
Well, I'm going to the investment capital people to ask for money to do this because it's a long
that's a good idea.
Books, so give me lots of money, I'll do this, and don't worry, your money will be well spent.
Pick the right name for the company that
Once
is doing it.
Once I figure out what to spend it on.
Yeah. I mean, it's at that level. I'm looking right now. This thing's being retweeted back to me a couple of times. This smug visage of the CEO in a weird, like in an undershirt. I don't know what he's doing and having his photo taken this way.
So the guy who bought it is a fellow named Toby Morton, a comedian and former writer for South Park. And it says in this piece from Deadline, in an interview with the Washington Post, Morton said he decided to purchase the domain names after Trump, quote, began gutting the Kennedy Center board.
Yeah.
I thought, yep, that name's going on the building.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, a credible commentator. He should be on the air somewhere doing these things, making these
Somebody asked him, what are you going to do with those names? What with those domain names you now own? He shrugged and said, I don't know. Some things are truly hard to parody.
Yeah, I guess. And, I mean, you can do that parody for $20. It's not a huge loss. I don't know how many he bought, but.
Just every variation, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean there may be a lot, and I guess one danger though is like in a normal situation you'd say, all right, somebody has to pay me to get those domains, whereas in this particular situation they may just say, well, what if we just arrest you and seize it instead because something government, and where normally you'd say no, you got to have a better basis for it than that. You can't just arrest the guy. I wouldn't put it past the Trump administration. So we'll see. It's a brilliant idea until we read the story of his being imprisoned.
So,
yeah,
my last story for today.
All right. Yes,
because it should be the last story. because I don't have an hour's worth of stuff to do, is from the Financial Times. They style themselves FT now.
Huh. Well,
but they're the Financial Times.
That's what I say when it doesn't get rid of my cold. FT. It's not working.
I think it's one of those papers in London that's like printed on pink paper, so everybody knows what you're reading when you're on the underground.
It's kind of cool. Interesting. Pink.
Pope Leo's pick to lead New York Catholics signals shift away from MAGA. Now, I found this interesting for a number of reasons.
It's in the Financial Times.
Of course, I'm a native New Yorker.
Right.
And it notes that progressive Catholics, including some in the Vatican, felt church had allied too closely with the Republican Party.
Yeah. Interesting.
In other words, you're talking about Cardinal Timothy Dolan.
Yes.
Who's being replaced.
Timothy Cardinal Dolan, as they used to say in the olden days.
This just has it as Cardinal Timothy Dolan, to which I say, in all seriousness and depth of feeling, thank God.
Okay.
That he's
serious.
Being replaced. He was terrible.
Thank you, God.
All right.
Yeah, pretty much.
He was out of step with, I think, a large portion of the majority of I imagine Manhattan, New York Catholics, but I guess some old schools. There's some conservatives.
Cardinal Dolan emerged as a U.S. political influencer and Fox News favorite who publicly repudiated the Democrats and led a conservative Catholic embrace of Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Now, Pope Leo the 14th, the first American spiritual leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics. And I'm surprised in that little blurb they didn't say bats right, throws right for Pope Leo.
Right.
It's like...
Bit of
a big baseball fan.
Yeah.
Has picked a cleric of a very different ilk to replace Dolan in U.S. Catholicism's highest profile job, as he puts a stamp on U.S. church roiled by Trump's populist MAGA movement.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, if you're ever in New York City, stop by and see St. Patrick's Cathedral. It's just drop dead gorgeous.
Sure.
It's one of those, usually in New York, if it's there, it's a nice building. I think I'll tear it down and build a newer building. That's one of those that it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, cathedrals often
we'll just move
survive
uptown.
that way.
No, doesn't work that way.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting switch. It's good news, I think, generally speaking. Other news on the horizon, I will say we got to get around to Ukraine and Russia. I don't know if you know about their having a war, but Trump is going to
as
fix
it happens, I have this piece from Phillips O'Brien called Why the Pantomime? It's always been about defending Putin. Oh, and perhaps getting a Nobel Prize, he says.
Well, hopefully not.
But he's a very good analyst, and he's been on it.
Yep. Yeah, they had been having meetings with, I guess, President Zelensky of Ukraine is in Mar-a-Lago, I'm sure to his great chagrin, but he's making the effort to show up and be on hand, I guess, so that there's a voice in the room objecting to Donald Trump agreeing with Vladimir Putin on everything. But another voice in the room for no particular reason is Jared Kushner. He lives next door, I guess. And he figured, I'll just go over and negotiate the peace.
There. Yeah. Listen, do you have the exact quote from Trump? I have it right in front of me.
No, I don't. Which one?
Laughing Zelensky when he heard it.
Oh.
Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed. This is a real quote. President Putin was very generous in his feeling toward Ukraine succeeding, including supplying energy, electricity, and other things at very low prices.
What? Yes, I can see why you would laugh.
Yeah.
I did.
So probably Jared Kushner was in the room to answer your question because he's starting a utility company called Rivendell.
Yeah, probably. That may have something to do with it.
And he's going to sell all this stuff to Ukraine because then you can make money.
Yeah.
And then this quote from Trump's chief of staff and intimate Susie Wiles in her extraordinary Vanity Fair interview, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
It has a ring of truth. And the quote is, the experts think if he, Putin, could get the rest of Donetsk, then he would be happy. Of course not. He wants Irkutsk, Yakutsk, and he wants all the risk board game things he can have. Wiles told me in August, says the quote, but privately, Trump wasn't buying it. He didn't believe Putin wanted peace. Donald Trump thinks he wants the whole country, Wiles told me. Now, both of those statements, writes Phillips O'Brien, can't be true. They cancel each other out. And there is one that is far more likely to be true, which is Susie Wiles, and one that's almost certainly a lie, which is what Trump said.
Oh, well.
Right?
Yeah.
And he says, listen, let's just analyze this. The statement by Trump that Putin wants to see Ukraine succeed seems to have been a deliberate choice by Donald Trump to deceive. In other words, he's lying. What Ukraine needs to do in Putin's eyes is disappear and become part of Russia, or acknowledge that you've always been Russia.
Yeah, succeed that way.
Now, the fact that Trump spent most of the press conference either defending or praising Putin and undermining the Ukrainian position is indicative of why he's doing what he's doing and why it has been so effective. Of course, effective in the sense that you get headlines, not effective in the sense that whatever he does, Putin says, yeah, no.
Yeah. Right.
You cannot have it. We want the entire country. You can't have this kind of peace proposal.
It is getting kind of ridiculous in that every time he meets with Zelensky, Trump just calls Putin the day before and says, what should I say? And then Trump says it. It's I don't know. It's very unusual, I guess. That's all I can. Oh, I have sound for that too. Right?
That's unusual!
Exactly, Stephen.
Exactly.
I know you're alarmed, but
that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's it. Anyway, that's it for me for today. That's
okay.
All.
Sure, I can agree with that, and I will carry it forward from here. I did see somebody else making this point. Who am I reading here? Adam Schwartz. Adam Schwartz, who are you? Well, a writer and political commentator. That doesn't help a whole lot, but it's probably true. British, I guess, because it says featured on BBC, Sky News. I don't know what LBC is. Euronews, so okay. A European-based writer and political commentator. It was a hell of a thing for him to say this way, but not that my computer is going to let me get back to it. But basically he was saying, is it really true that the United States just spent billions, trillions, whatever, trillions of dollars winning the Cold War only for its president in 2025 to take orders from a Russian dictator? This is, as he puts it, an earth-shattering humiliation for America, of which its reputation may never recover. A lot of talk about that, by the way, about it's going to either be permanent or take decades to dig out from underneath the damage that he's doing, except, Trump doesn't view it as damage. He views this as part of his assignment. I want to divorce ourselves from NATO and get out of the Western European alliance and get into the one that will make me money, the Eastern European alliance. Oh, no. And, that is a pretty astonishing way of putting it. And I didn't realize that this was a European commentator making this point, but it's that much more worrisome if it's the case. So sad. All right. Well, let's see. What other fun things might I? Well, we'll plan going forward, but I've got a few things pocketed and set aside. I'm just going to continue to monitor I don't know how much longer. Do you know how much longer the Ukraine meetings are going on, or have they wrapped up? Is this only a weekend thing for Trump?
I really don't know. I just assume whatever happens is that Zelensky makes some concessions, makes nice noises about how wonderful Trump is, and goes back to Russia, and Putin says no. That's just a cycle, and it's hard to pay attention when, in fact, that's what always happens.
Yeah. Hard to believe anything real is going to happen. I was looking at a picture of a table, and Jared Kushner is there, like,
right.
Well, duh. What's going to happen?
Anyway,
it's going to be
that's
a
it for
hotel
me for
deal.
today. So Cow and I will be signing off, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Okay, very good. Thank you for stopping by and joining us for the weekend recap. I do see that now I think the most circulated thing happening on social media is apparently the New York Times has decided now is the time for an in-depth look inside the mind, whatever, of Marjorie Traitor Greene. And mostly the reactions online are, I can't believe you actually think that she's going through some sort of like awakening here. She's breaking with Trump to flank him from the right. Why are you thinking that she's had some genuine episode of repentance here? But I don't know. They're going with that headline. It's a New York Times Magazine profile of her, which unfortunately also means that it comes with a gigantic blow-up, close-up photo of her, which is just always disturbing. I was so naive, it begins. That was a quote, I guess. Inside Marjorie Taylor Greene's break with Trump, how the Georgia Congresswoman went from the president's loudest cheerleader and like feeling up paper cutouts of him and sticking her hand in his crotch. Like, let's not forget how actually absurd she was about it. To his loudest Republican critic, which again, like Greg always warned us about healthcare polling, opposing the Affordable Care Act from the left is not the same thing as opposing it from the right. And no indication that she's moderating her views. She's just shifting to different political ground from which she can launch a right-wing crusade independent of Trump because, look, he's a dead man walking. So it's probably just, it's unbelievable that she's got the prescience and the presence of mind to figure out that she needs to prepare for the post-Trump era. But I guess there's something going on in her brain somewhere. And it may not have been that she thought ahead that she needed to prepare it. It may just have been that she ended up running afoul of Trump on the Epstein things. She was, an actual true believer in we got to do something to root out the pedophile ring cabal that's running global politics. And then it turned out that Trump was involved in it, and she was in too deep in protesting against it and couldn't back out of it. And then he took pot shots at her, and she figured, all right, well, I'm never going to get back in. But I guess never say never, because the other most shared item, I think, on social media so far from the end of the weekend, the latter part of the weekend, and from this morning is it New York Times? A report on the rehabilitation of Elon Musk in Trump world, how it happened, and how J.D. Vance was the one helping drive it. And of course, no mystery about why he would bother helping drive it. We need somebody with $300-400 billion and no understanding of actually how or why to use it, and make them our guy and use up all his money. So of course, that's what he's working on. Oh, boy. Okay. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Just a little running around the kitchen trying to make sure that there's enough water nearby. Parched today, having had another of the zinc lozenges, which just tends to dry you out just a little bit more. All right. Let's get on to the, I guess, other people choosing the subjects of the day for me. But just want to keep up and want to know what's happening in the news and in the discussion world. Robert Draper is the author of the Marjorie Taylor Greene profile. And, wow, I mean, I hate to think that this is the thing to spend time on, is reading an in-depth profile, but the vociferous complaints about, I guess, the credulousness with which they went into this means we got to have at least one eye on this. We'll see how much we can stomach of it. 11 days, it begins, after Charlie Kirk was killed in September. I'm already disliking this because it's got, it's setting time by Charlie Kirk at this point, which, enough. Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know what we call her here on the show. It's funny, too, because now Trump calls her Marjorie Traitor Greene, but I don't know, he hasn't stumbled upon the murdery Traitor Greene thing yet. But she seems less murdery these days, and I think that's the charm initiative, the charm offensive that she's on here. But anyway, 11 days after Kirk was killed, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the third-term Georgia Congresswoman, was watching his memorial service on TV as the luminaries of the conservative movement in the Trump administration gathered to pay tribute to the young activist. What stayed with Greene long afterward were the last two speakers who took the stage. First, there was Kirk's widow, Erica, who stood in white before the crowd filling the Arizona stadium, lifted her tear-filled eyes and said that she forgave her husband's killer. And then there was President Trump. He was a missionary with a noble spirit and a great, great purpose, Trump had said of Kirk. I'm too tired to be doing the voice at this point. But I didn't realize it was him, actually. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. Oh, that's interesting, too. Like Putin wants the best. He wants to see Ukraine succeed. So it's a good parallel. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. And then Greene, who is, I guess, already on the outs, says that was absolutely the worst statement. Greene wrote to me in a text message months after the memorial service, and the contrast between Erica Kirk and the president was clarifying. She added, it just shows where his heart is, and that's the difference with her having a sincere Christian faith and proves that he does not have any faith. Well, hello. Not that you didn't ride the illusion of his faith to a successful political career, and now you say you're sorry about it, but come on already. Anyway, it also, Greene said, clarified something about herself over the past 5 years. As Trump's most notorious acolyte in Congress, she had adopted his unrepentant pugilism as her own. That's certainly true. Well, I don't know that. I guess I would qualify that by saying she came to the job as an unqualified pugilist, and it's not entirely clear that any of it came from Donald Trump, per se. But it certainly, his activism inflamed it. But even before she was in Congress, she's a conspiracy theorist YouTuber. She didn't need any tutoring in unrepentant pugilism, but okay. Our side has been trained by Donald Trump to never apologize and never admit when you're wrong, she told me in her Capitol Hill office one afternoon in early December. You just keep pummeling your enemies no matter what. And as a Christian, I don't believe in doing that. Come on, yes you do. I agree with Erica Kirk, who did the hardest thing possible and said it out loud. I mean, I don't know. People have changes of heart. I just don't believe that she's having one. I think she's just making a play for things. But I mean, she's got an awful lot to repent for that she doesn't. I'd be surprised if she acknowledges any of it. Maybe she does. It's a long piece. I don't know. And I'm sort of balking at the prospect of reading it all because she makes me ill, and I'm already ill. So it's difficult. But I mean, I just think of her. I know a lot of people's minds go to the video she made video of herself. She didn't get caught on video doing this. She purposely produced the video of herself. Well, I don't know. A lot of people's minds turn to her harassing David Hogue, the young Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting survivor activist who was at the time on Capitol Hill to, lobby for gun safety legislation. And she, who had not been elected to Congress, I don't know whether she was running or not at the time. She was just a Facebook-based QAnon, ultra-conservative, weirdo video maven, and videoed herself chasing him down the street on his way, while he's on his way to the Capitol office buildings or to the Capitol, whatever. I don't know whether it was to testify for a meeting, and she's just behind him asking, her stupid setup questions. Why don't you believe in Americans' right to bear arms? Why do you like red flag laws? I'm a law-abiding gun owner, and I just harassing him the whole time. And it was insane. And he was a teenager, which is what made it more insane. I think what's the driving the driving force behind so many people focusing on that video. But the one that really got me, I thought, was, again, before she's elected to Congress, she's just a wacko from Georgia out of nowhere, shows up and demands a confrontation with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at her office, and they end up, right, like I've mentioned it before, closing and locking the office door against her and her video crew, while she eventually, says, yeah, come get down close and videotape me pushing open the mail slot on the office door and shouting challenges through the mail slot to her. Like, she's ultra crazy and super dangerous. And it's amazing, by the way, and you might even ask the question, why is it that with this happening, there's no video of the Capitol Police arriving at some point and saying, ma'am, you got to move on. You can't be here. This is ridiculous. We just got a call from this office that they are concerned for their safety, that there's somebody outside at their door they've had to lock and there's yelling through the mail slot. I mean, they may have showed up and they may not have filmed them being ejected from the Capitol office building, but you do wonder, why is this able to go on for so long? Anyway, back to the profile. Greene's reaction, I guess, to the Charlie Kirk funeral thing put her in a distinct minority among influential conservatives. Almost immediately after Kirk was declared dead, many of her comrades on the right, the billionaire Elon Musk, the Fox News host Jesse Waters, the podcaster Steve Bannon, labeled the killing an act of war by the left and exhorted their audience to think in similar terms. You probably heard about that, probably expected it at the moment it happened. But Greene, who for years took a backseat to no one when it came to reactionary rhetoric, that's certainly true, going so far before she was in office, there we are, to accuse Democrats, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi, of treasonous conduct and adding that treason was punishable by imprisonment or death, realized that she had suddenly lost all appetite for vengeance. That is something. She's been taking Ozempic for vengeance, apparently. She later told a friend who confirmed the exchange, after Charlie died, I realized that I'm part of this toxic culture. I really started looking at my faith. I wanted to be more like Christ. Sounds nice. I mean, I don't believe her, but it sounds nice. That was when the stress fracture that had been steadily widening between Greene and her political godfather became an irrevocable break. She had increasingly taken stands apart from the president and the Republican Party, declaring the war in Gaza a genocide, objecting to cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence policies that, from her perspective, prioritized billionaire donors over working-class Americans, criticizing the Trump administration for approving foreign student visas, for enacting tariffs that hurt businesses in her district, and for allowing Obamacare subsidies to expire. Yeah, all of which are definite maybes for her, may change at any time. And by the way, she invested pretty heavily in all of the Trump ventures, up to and including the cryptocurrency ventures. So I don't know where she comes up with this idea that that is somehow a breaking point with him. Most significant, she defied the president and compliant House Republican leaders as she argued that all investigative material pertaining to the Jeffrey Epstein case should be released. The Epstein files represent everything wrong with Washington, Greene told me in December. Rich, powerful elites doing horrible things and getting away with it, and women are the victims. You might have wondered where she was for the past 10 years on this, but whatever. As Greene made her opinions known, first to Trump and his team, and then publicly, she tested the affection of the man who once said of her in a posted statement endorsing her reelection, Marjorie Traitor Greene, oh, this is him, Marjorie Traitor Greene, I can't do it with the cold, is a warrior in Congress. She doesn't back down, she doesn't give up, and she's always been with, and he says in his quote, Trump. I don't know why that is, but that's just the kind of guy that he is. Yeah. All right. Well, by the way, I should also point out, she was so Trumpy that she was at the White House with the team on January 5th, 2020, when you can't get pardoned for it, right? Now you can, and you might. She won't anymore. But she was there prior to and helping do the planning for January 6th. By January 6th, she was, of course, among the number in Congress, being evacuated to protect them from this sacking of the Capitol, although she thought it was hilarious. And she, like Lauren Boebert, reveled in tweeting out the location of certain high-value targets in the middle of all this, and you shouldn't forget that. But what was so astonishing about it was that she was on the White House grounds the day before while they were doing all the planning. You forget, she was elected in 2020. She had been a member of Congress. If she was there, I think she might even have been there for some of the planning in December. And not to mention a few days prior to, and she also was among the members that were I think, were supposedly spotted by some others giving tours to groups of people who later were arrested and later pardoned, of course, for their activities on January 6th, giving them tours of the building. But she would have been sworn in for this term that would entitle her to give tours of the building on January 3rd, 2021. So if in January of 2021, I think I said 2020 earlier, if in January of 2021, she is in White House planning sessions, or even before, in December of 2020, when she's not yet been sworn in as a member of Congress, this would be her first term. How is she even known to these guys? Like, it's almost impossible to get noticed as a first-term member of Congress at the White House. They don't pay any attention to you at all. But to then be on the planning team before you're sworn in and giving tours of a building that you've worked in, quote-unquote, worked in for less than 3 days. What's happening here? Okay. But she's had a change of heart. Back to the article. Now the cascade of perceived transgressions culminated in the president's tarring her as Marjorie Traitor Greene in a social media post on November 15th. 6 days later, she announced in a video that she would resign from Congress on January 5th, a year before her term ends. So that's almost here. We're almost, I guess, rid of her, but time for a profile, which I guess means we're never going to be rid of her. In early December, as she prepared to make her exit, I met Greene for the first of 2 long interviews in which she was remarkably forthcoming about her frustrations with the president and his anger with her. I have covered Greene, who is 51, extensively over the past 5 years, and it was evident during this recent visit that on one level, nothing had changed. All right, good. Just outside the front door of her office stood the familiar placard blaring, "There are 2 genders, male and female." Good use of the wall space outside your office. One sign on the door warned visitors that no foreign lobbying was allowed, while another featured the image of Charlie Kirk. Hanging on the wall outside the waiting area were fan letters from all over America, some dating to 2021, her first year in office. The television was, as always, set to Fox News, though Greene told me she no longer watched the network because she found it factually unreliable. Yes, but from the right or from the left? You tell me. The fact that her office remained the same reflected Greene's sense of where she stood. She continued to be faithful to Trump's campaign promises. If anything, she said, her sin was to have regarded them as more than slogans. That's what I'm guilty of, she told me. That's what made me, in the president's words, a traitor, which was truly believing in Make America Great Again, which I perceived to be America first. Greene's last exchange with the president was by text message on November 16th. That day, she received an anonymous email in her personal Gmail account that threatened her college-aged son. "Derek will have his life snuffed out soon. Better watch his back." The email's subject heading used the nickname Trump had given her the day before, Marjorie Traitor Greene. Greene promptly texted that information to the president. According to a source familiar with the exchange, his long reply made no mention of her son. Instead, Trump insulted her in personal terms. When she replied that children should remain off limits from their disagreements, Trump responded that she had only herself to blame. So, he's a sympathetic guy. In response to detailed questions and a request for comment, Davis Ingle, a White House spokesman, do we know this one? Wrote in a statement, President Trump remains the undisputed leader of the greatest and fastest growing political movement in American history, the MAGA movement. On the other hand, Congresswoman Greene is quitting on her constituents in the middle of her term and abandoning the consequential fight we're in. We don't have time for her petty bitterness. Okay. I'm cool with that. I'll agree with Trump on that one. We don't have time for it. We should get rid of her. I was just wondering in the middle of all that, as I'm reading about her quitting in the middle of it, and I'm reminded of Sarah Palin, and that's not by any means the only thing about her that reminds me of Sarah Palin. But Sarah Palin, I think, thought her quitting in the middle of the term was going to work out great for her politically too, and I'm just sort of curious whether Marjorie Taylor Greene avoids the same fate or just is walking into the same trap. I hope it's the same trap. The president's banishment of Greene can be viewed as the most recent of several cracks in the MAGA coalition that seemed shatterproof after Trump's re-election in 2024. I don't know about that. The president's brash Inauguration Day prediction of a golden age has not borne out for most Americans, with polling increasingly showing a drop in his approval ratings, to say the least. And in the Republican forecast for the next year's midterm elections, a few voices on the right have dared to openly question the president's judgment, even while fighting among themselves over how to best interpret and execute America first. Among them, and by the way, they do intend to execute America first. Among them, Greene may be the least likely of Trump's conscientious objectors. So we read just a little bit more? Why not? It has been tempting for some observers to predict that the meteoric crash and burn, a good use of meteoric, crash and burn of the MAGA movement's loudest champion signals the beginning of the end for its leader as well, but it is Greene who is exiting the stage while Trump continues to dominate it, as he did through impeachments and indictments and other controversies that no other politician would have survived. I guess you have to acknowledge that as true. Greene acknowledged to me that her abrupt ejection from Trump's orbit is unlikely to diminish his stature with his party or its base. He has trash-talked so many people, Greene told me. I promise you, I don't hold myself up as more special than the others he's done this to. I get it. This is Trump. This is what he does. It's the right noises to make anyway. Still, her 5-year trajectory on the national scene, from the president's embrace to her excommunication, serve as an apt parable for this political moment. If Trump engendered loyalty on an unprecedented scale, Greene was his most fervent, high-profile loyalist, and now his most unlikely apostate. Apostate? What do we say? How do we say that one? I don't know. My head is too clogged to think about it. She arrived in Washington as one kind of misfit and departs as another, all while remaining more or less herself, but also changing in ways that compelled even her detractors to give her a second look. Well, that's what you're doing. Not me. I don't know. I don't think so. But, whatever. You still got time. Convince me. None of this is normal, like the rest of the Trump era, but because it represents an evolution for Greene, she may yet again prove to be a harbinger of a sea change in the movement she once helped lead, if that was really what she was doing. Greene arrived in Congress during its weirdest time as its weirdest character. A former believer in the QAnon conspiracy theory, a CrossFit competitor, and a wealthy co-owner of her family's construction firm with no political experience, now jetting around on Air Force One with the President of the United States, endeavoring to overturn the 2020 election results. 3 days after Greene was sworn into office in January 2021, the Capitol fell siege to rioters trying to stop the certification of Joe Biden's victory. According to Greene, she found herself sequestered with other House members in a conference room and arguing with another Republican freshman, Kat Kamek of Florida. BLM and Antifa have broken into the Capitol, Greene insisted. Grabbing Greene's shoulders, Kamek replied firmly, Marjorie, they're wearing MAGA hats. All right. Why isn't this profile of Kamek? She's probably no good either. Early that February, I stood outside the Capitol watching Greene hold a news conference. The day before, 11 Republicans joined with a unanimous Democratic House majority in voting to strip Greene of her committee assignments for the incendiary remarks she made before running for office. Now she defiantly proclaimed, against all conventional wisdom, that her adversaries had it wrong about Trump's demise and that the base had not deserted the exiled former president. The party is his. It doesn't belong to anybody else. At the time, frankly, I thought she sounded nuts. But as the year wore on, Greene's prescience would become evident as her emerging star power, there we are, in the MAGA ecosystem, and I became convinced that in order to understand that ecosystem, it was essential to understand this figure at the heart of it. After months of background interviews with her top aides, I got word that she was willing to meet with me. Early in 2022, I traveled to Rome, Georgia, where all roads lead, in the northwestern corner of the state where the Congresswoman lived. When her aides nervously buttonholed me in the doorway of the restaurant where Greene and I were due to meet and muttered that everything would have to be off the record, I realized how tenuous the situation was. Greene, a prolific user of the term fake news media, had never sat down with a Times reporter before. It occurred to me that the sum total of what she knew about this news organization and others like it came from Fox News and the Confederates in her impermeable MAGA bubble. This is a good point, actually. In her world, mainstream media outfits were perpetrators of the Russia hoax and were in league with the Democrats. She ignored them and distrusted them. That is interesting. So by the time she sits down with them as this luminary in MAGA world, 5 years in Congress, first time she's sat down to talk with a reporter one-on-one from the New York Times. I mean, that's true of a lot of 5-year members of Congress, but none of such a high profile, I don't think. And by the way, we'll point out, when you traveled to Rome, Georgia, you went where she's now living. I think she basically rented an apartment. Maybe she bought a condo there. She did not live in the district. She bought into it when it came open because she, like a lot of people, thought it was exploitable. And it was. She was right about that. I just thought I would point that out. So let's see. I guess I could have waited for the next sentence, which is, what brings you to Rome? She asked as she shook my hand. When I replied, I'm just here to see you, she blinked in surprise. If he had responded, I could ask you the same thing. What brings you to Rome? And the answer is an open seat and no other connection to Rome. But okay. It's not like she's not even from Georgia or anything. She's just from the next district over. It seemed to be a source of relief, if perhaps somewhat discombobulating, that I also had a Southern accent and was more interested in her current political beliefs than her previous statements. That none of her off-the-record remarks to me that day appeared in print or on social media further reduced her wariness. Other on the record interviews soon followed, a few in her office, one back in her district, and a couple in Washington restaurants. One autumn evening in 2022, I ventured to ask just how she thought the 2020 election was stolen. This is while she's still MAGA, so... Did she really think that a grand conspiracy, perhaps masterminded by the Obamas and the CIA, had secretly rigged the results? And I don't know, she answered earnestly. Robert, she replied with a searching look, do you really think Joe Biden got 81 million votes without even campaigning? Yes, I said. They counted all the votes. That was the final tally. Why wouldn't I believe it? The look she then gave me, which I will never forget, was one of bottomless pity. I soon became accustomed to the is she as crazy as she seems queries from the same friends and peers who 15 years earlier had asked me while I was spending time with President George W. Bush if he was as stupid as he appeared. The answer was a qualified no. Greene did harbor genuine conspiratorial streak, often even wondering if this or that person wore a wire, but she was also becoming an increasingly shrewd and acerbic observer of life on Capitol Hill. By January of 2023, the Republicans had reclaimed the House, and Greene had developed a strong alliance with the new Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, who bestowed on her an unofficial seat at the leadership table. Through it all, Greene remained a Trump diehard. She first visited him at Mar-a-Lago in March of 2021, a time when many other elected Republicans were keeping their distance. 3 months later, when Trump staged his first rally since leaving office, Greene was there as his warm-up act in Ohio, declaring, as a matter of fact, he's the greatest president this country has ever had, and he should be our president right now, but the dirty, rotten Democrats stole the election. Trump gushed in return, she's loved and respected, and she's tough and smart and kind. While others in her party kept their opinions, or rather their options, open, as Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, entered the field of the 2024 presidential election. Greene's, laughing at you, Ron. Greene's allegiances were not up for debate, and Trump took notice. By early 2022, she would tell me Trump had floated the idea of her as his 2024 running mate. Wow, I forgot about that. That rolling discussion continued into the summer of 2024, she says, but Trump, she claims, was bothered by her steadfast opposition to abortion, which she has called murder. I don't know why Trump was worried about that, except, I mean, I'm sure he wanted the room to flip-flop on abortion, but he never has. So, I don't know. A White House spokesman said that Greene was never under consideration. Not really. Vice President J.D. Vance also opposes abortion, but has deferred to Trump's preference to leave the matter up to the states. She ultimately joined Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk, and Donald Trump Jr. as early advocates of Vance, and then who was then a first-term senator from Ohio. Of course, according to an aide, Greene would end up spending roughly $1 million from her own war chest to campaign for Trump's reelection. Greene's fidelity to the MAGA cause masked some private misgivings, she now says. Some of Trump's devotees struck Greene as worshipful in the extreme. Really? For a lot of MAGA, Trump is a savior. He's like a god to them. And we thought to you, too. But she also says she disliked the unctuous hedonistic posturing at Mar-a-Lago. But she went anyway. Weirdo.
Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, one crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support.
All right, welcome back for one more segment of the Kagro in the Morning Show here on. Okay, I'm really starting to fade here at this point, but one more segment and we'll make it through, and I'll give some consideration to how we're going to handle the rest of this week. But I did want to read you a little bit more from this profile, but I very desperately want to jump out of this profile and into something else that's going to be too long to read. But just to get a little bit of it on the record, I mentioned to you that there was a natural segue to make here. And this is probably it, where we've just learned about the flirtation, if you will, of Marjorie Taylor Greene with Trump as a possible vice presidential candidate. But instead, everything turning to Vance, and then it would make it a good time, I think, to jump out and talk about how Vance just smoothed the way for Elon Musk to come back into the fold, which may or may... It's interesting. I wonder if that will end up leading to... I'm not sure why, just because this has sort of happened with everybody. That's the only reason I have to point to this. If by 2028, Vance is somehow on the outs with Trump. I mean, he fell out with his first vice president. He fell out with the next person he was considering as vice president. And now he's landed on someone else. Maybe he'll be on the outs with them. And Elon Musk will say, actually, I'll take over. And it'll be me as president instead. And Vance will have facilitated that by bringing him back into the fold, thinking he was going to exploit the richest man in the world for all of his money, who might instead just say, actually, I'll spend it differently and get rid of you. We'll see. Anyway, but I'm hanging around a little bit longer on this because I was interested in how she came to say, hey, I don't like how worshipful people are of Donald Trump, which is an amazing realization, if it's a realization at all, for her to come to. And then she says, it says here, she also disliked the unctuous hedonistic posturing at Mar-a-Lago. Curious what she has to say about Mar-a-Lago, and it turns out, oh no, we have something in common here. In particular, she told me, not me, but the writer, me, recently, I never liked the MAGA Mar-a-Lago sexualization, which is a little bit weird for her because she's a little bit hypersexual, as disturbing as that is. But also, Again, going back to her, like, caressing the crotch of the Trump cardboard cutout, which I'm sure she would deny that she was doing, but I think everybody saw it on video. But also, she came with a bit of weirdo baggage about her having relationships with various people and trainers at the gym. And then finally settling on some. I mean, I think she's divorced now from her first husband, which, you know, that happens to a lot of people in Washington, D.C. It happens to a lot of people everywhere. That's not the issue. But apparently, for a while there, she was, like, running through a number of, like I said, reported, alleged relationships with people at the gym, which I guess somebody going through a divorce might, you know, do ordinarily. Doesn't have to be a MAGA weirdo necessarily. But if you're also at the same time, you know, waving a stick around and threatening everybody who's not as Christian as you are, well, you know, I'm just saying. Anyway, she now says she never liked the weirdo hedonistic posturing at Mar-a-Lago. I don't either. What's interesting is she found out, I guess, at some point that Trump World was a sex cult. And even though she was mixed up in her own probably most aggressive sexual period of her life, she didn't like seeing it in other people. And what can you do? Weirdos are hypocrites. We're all a little bit hypocritical at some level, I'm sure. She's just that much bigger. She's a bigger than life figure, bigger than life hypocrisy. Anyway, so what's she talking about here? In particular, she told me recently, I never liked the Mar-a-Lago or the MAGA Mar-a-Lago sexualization. I believe how women in leadership present themselves sends a message to younger women. Now, she's onto something here. She continued, I have 2 daughters. They only threatened the son's life, interestingly, but I have 2 daughters, and I've always been uncomfortable with how those women puff up their lips and enlarge their breasts. I've never spoken about it publicly, but I've been planning to. Okay. You know, that's a legit subject. I hope you're really telling the truth about that. I will resist, I think, allowing myself to think differently of you. I'll try my best. And maybe that's unfair, but I'll probably try anyway. Still, for everything that gave her pause about Trump and the MAGA faithful, there was always the left to remind Greene of what she found truly appalling. By 2024, Greene had become more politically sophisticated and less inclined to vilify the news media, but she continued to characterize Trump's Democratic opponents and their positions in the direst of terms. Radical communist Kamala Harris, the perverted trans agenda against children that is an attack directly on God's creation. Various quotes here. The party of pedophiles. Uh-oh. The day after the assassination attempt on Trump in Pennsylvania that July, just days before the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, where he would receive the party's official nomination, Greene described the stakes on X as a battle between good and evil. I had plans to meet Greene for a drink on the second day of the convention. An hour before we were to get together, she texted me that she'd received a better offer. Trump had asked her to sit next to him that evening. As she sat beside the man she called in her own convention speech the founding father of America First movement. Greene's status as the Athena figure in that movement was on display for all to see. Ah, how the mighty have fallen. In turn, Greene's belief in her MAGA Zeus was nearly absolute. Remember, her big criticism is they all worship him in a weird way. Shortly after Trump secured the nomination, I convened a dinner with Greene. Her boyfriend, Brian Glenn, now the White House correspondent for the right-wing outlet Real America's Voice, and 2 of my fellow Times reporters. At one point, I mentioned Trump's pledge to enact retribution against his perceived enemies. Greene's demeanor turned icy. President Trump, she crisply informed me, was focused on saving America, not payback. Any suggestion to the contrary was asinine. She warned me that if my colleagues and I continued to pursue this ridiculous line of inquiry, she would get up and leave. More than a year after the dinner, I asked Greene, was there ever a point before 2025 where you thought, you know what, Trump acts like a man of the people, and he talks about the forgotten men and women of this country, but I'm not so sure. I was just so naive and outside of politics, Greene said with a wince of a smile, that it was easy for me to naively believe. Oh boy. The year would end with a seismic political rupture between Greene and Trump, but the year began, I guess I should have said, with nothing but good vibes. I can't wait to get to work, Greene announced in a news release on January 17th, 2025, 3 days before Trump was sworn in for the second time. She was newly elected to a third term herself and had been named chairwoman of the House Subcommittee on Delivering on Government Efficiency, or the DOGE Subcommittee, which was set up to work in lockstep with Elon Musk's fund-slashing agency to downsize the federal government. And now, at last, Republicans controlled both the executive and legislative branches. Greene's brash assessment of Trump in early 2021, that the party is his, was, if anything, an understatement. Greene's eagerness to get to work became all too evident to the new administration. She sent long, insistent text messages to Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, along with her deputy, James Blair, and cabinet members. Greene's congressional staff had long been accustomed to her "I will not be ignored" tactics, a playbook they jokingly referred to as bitch, bully, and bulldoze. But those recipients were the most powerful government officials in America, and in retrospect, the personal slights between her and them may have foreshadowed the ill feelings that would ensue. According to a person with knowledge of the matter, Greene's missives could come off as pushy, unconstructive, and at times disrespectful. She wasn't as prolific with me as she apparently was with others, Wiles told me. I would sometimes know when she texted the president because I'd be dispatched to do something she was asking for. I couldn't get to all of her texts, but I acted when I could. Because, of course, she was the steady hand at the tiller of the White House, right? From Greene's perspective, the new White House team consisted mainly of latecomers to the MAGA movement, not day one Trumpists like herself. Greene harbored suspicions that Wiles and Blair were a little too closey with the billionaire donor class, and that in a contest between competing interests, the president's MAGA faithful would be left out in the cold. Well, she was right about that. They were. One more paragraph, perhaps, before we head out of here. Greene was also chagrined to discover that the Republican-controlled House under Speaker Mike Johnson seemed to have no say in Trump's agenda. I want you to know that Johnson is not our speaker, she told me in December. He's not our leader. And in the legislative branch, a totally separate body of government, he is literally 100% under direct orders from the White House. And many, many Republicans are so furious about that, but they're cowards. Well, that puts us about, I think, halfway, at least by the scroll bar indication, through this profile. I guess I would encourage you to read the rest of it on your own. I will take a look through it and see whether it's worth discussing any further. I just sort of wanted to let you know that that was out, that people are talking about it, discussing it, and I guess, you know, as a side discussion, is the writer being taken in here or what? It's not entirely clear to me that that's the case. Let me throw out that there's this other item. It is the Washington Post. I think I had said New York Times, but in fact the Washington Post that has this. Maybe I miss it. Maybe I didn't misidentify it. Maybe I'm misremembering having misidentified it. The Washington Post piece, How Vance Brokered a Truce Between Trump and Musk. It seems like an important piece to sample from and to know, to note as a sort of underlying theme, a mega trend in politics, if you will, and see whether it rings true and whether it has any long-term consequences. J.D. Vance, our subheader here, says, played a key role brokering a reconciliation between the president and his wealthiest supporter. But as Trump's first year in office comes to a close, both he and his allies have learned hard lessons about Musk's unusual influence. And it is unusual, isn't it? That's unusual! I agree, Stephen. Thank you very much. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, was doggedly working the phones, begins the article, trying to quell a rebellion in his midst. Elon Musk had just declared his intention to form a third party this spring. Remember that? That went to nothing, turning a simmering feud into an all-out war against the MAGA movement. It's odd to read this side by side with the Marjorie Traitor Greene story, don't you think? Maybe some parallels here. By the way, I should be crediting the work here of Elizabeth Dworkin, not Dworkin, but Dworkin, Natalie Allison, and Faiz Siddiqui, who have the byline on this Washington Post piece. Backlash to Musk's radical government cost-cutting campaign, the U.S. Dodgy service, along with his public swipes at President Donald Trump on social media, had damaged the relationship between the president and his billionaire backer. Now Vance and those around him feared a new party could hurt the GOP in the 2026 midterms and beyond. That's a dumb fear. He was never going to get that thing off the ground. That, according to two people familiar with his thinking, who spoke on the condition of anonymity, of course, to describe private conversations. And by the way, lots of writing surfacing now as well. We've been through this story. It seems like these are at best good follow-up stories, but guess what? Dodgy didn't save any money, and they ruined a lot of things in the world, including possibly killing upwards of 600,000 people deprived of USAID assistance. But you knew that. But I think they were getting at the economic bottom line lately, too. Hardly any of the things that they did actually saved any money. It was a huge, huge loss for the United States as a country, for the government, for American soft power abroad, for American control at home. And it, at the time of, of J.D. Vance's panicking, and he should be panicking about this, then you have a political split with the guy who did it, but who's the amount of money he's sitting on maybe makes him untouchable. Plus, he's got his own social media platform. You kind of have to bring him back into the fold. But I also have to say it seems foolish to worry about even a giant pile of money forming into a viable third party at this point. We'll see. But okay, there we are. And let's pick up in the next paragraph here. Vance already had appealed to Musk directly in his new effort to bring him back into the fold. This time, he urged Musk allies to push him to back off his third-party plans, and to do it, I guess, explicitly. And Vance would later personally lobby lawmakers to support restoring the nomination of Musk ally Jared Isaacman. This is what got people talking for some reason. This caught Empty Wheel's attention. Jared Isaacman to head NASA, the agency that funds Musk's space exploration business, SpaceX, said the two people. The months-long offensive by Vance and other White House officials, the details of which have not been previously reported, has worked. And I guess, let me just comment along the way here. They point out quite correctly that, all right, yes, so here comes Musk ally Jared Isaacman to head NASA. And then they pointed this out, and we sort of brushed right by it. The agency that funds Musk's space exploration business, SpaceX, right? But I just wanted to point out here how often Elon Musk and others like him and fans of him love to point out, well, look how successful SpaceX is. It's a private organization. See how well private enterprise can do, where the government is always screwing things up. Bureaucracy never works. Government can't do the things that private business does. But, and people sort of thought maybe this wasn't necessarily the case in space exploration, that it sort of had to be a national thing. And but I guess that was maybe during the days when nobody ever imagined anybody amassing the kind of capital that Elon Musk has put together. So it was never possible for anybody to direct a private enterprise space program before. But again, I want to read this to you one more time, right? Oh, well, I've done it privately. We've done it private sector. Nobody ever imagined anybody having the financial power to do it, but now I have it and I'm doing it privately, and it's so much better than government. Why does he care who's the head of NASA? Because that's the agency that funds his space exploration business, right? It's not millions of consumers like with Microsoft Windows buying products from Bill Gates either because they want to or have to. It's the government, instead of spending the money directly, giving it to Elon Musk to spend it indirectly. That's who funds the business. There isn't consumer space exploration. the capitalist private enterprise system isn't doing things better or differently than the public sector. They're just doing it and keeping more of the money for themselves. All right. Anyway, the months-long offensive by Vance and other White House officials, the details of which have not been previously reported, had worked, having scrapped his third-party project. Boring. Wait a minute, I have that somewhere, right?
Boring.
We're not going to do it. Musk appeared at the White House in November, attending a dinner for Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, of course. The killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, never mind the killing of columnist Jamal Khashoggi, but the killing of activist Charlie Kirk spurred Musk to put support behind GOP campaigns in the midterms, said a person directly familiar with his political operation who spoke on condition of anonymity. Privately, Musk is considering reworking his donations by seeding existing groups with cash rather than wielding his own super PAC, the person added, though you can certainly do both. But though Trump and Musk are once again on good terms, their truce is fragile, allies of both men say, and it always is the case. Everything around Trump is fragile. This story is based on interviews with more than a dozen people familiar with the relationship between Musk and the White House and Dodgy's ongoing influence, most of whom spoke on condition of anonymity. And you know why. The reconciliation offers a glimpse into the next phase of the singular political partnership, one that carries both risk and reward for all involved, as most things do. Musk and Trump forged their relationship around a set of shared aims: winning an election and trimming back what they saw as government largesse, without which, of course, there would be no SpaceX. But hey, there were deep gaps in their mutual understanding, 6 of the people said. Trump's camp was surprised at the speed and brazenness with which Musk inserted himself into government, commandeering computer systems and email servers to briskly uproot federal agencies, moved to dismantle the U.S. Agency for International Development, and his willingness to take shots at anyone, including cabinet members. Right? He almost came to blows with 1 or 2 of them at some point. Though Musk is unpredictable, he is also a formidable ally. With his nearly unlimited resources and unmatched digital megaphone, Musk could prove a powerful asset to the MAGA movement once Trump leaves the stage. Vance, in particular, stands to benefit. Though the falling out between Trump and Musk dominated the headlines, Vance's role in the reunion highlights his own relationship with the billionaire. He talks regularly with Musk, who sees Vance as a viable 2028 candidate. According to one of the people, Musk and Vance, a former Silicon Valley investor, share not just a tech-infused worldview, but a fondness for online performance, especially on Musk's social media platform, X, where Vance has embraced a sharp own-the-libs style that can mirror Musk's own taste for provocation. He's just no good at it. Their alliance could further entrench the influence of tech titans in the White House, extending the authority of private entrepreneurs, if that's even what they are. I question that, but okay. But Vance, who has been dogged, not dodged, but dogged by criticism dating back to his 2021 Senate campaign that his close ties to billionaires undermine his populist bona fides, may have to tread carefully. Ties to a tech billionaire of Musk's stature carries political risk at a moment when skepticism of Silicon Valley runs deep among many Americans and even within the MAGA movement itself. And advisors to both Trump and Vance understand that Musk's support comes with baggage beyond the usual demands of deep-pocketed donors, with Musk eager at times to command the spotlight and drive policy toward his own worldview. Republican officials eager for Musk's financial help are fully aware of that reality. Obviously, we would love to see Musk contribute generously, said Oscar Brock, a member of the Republican National Committee from Tennessee, but he brings with him an awful lot of media attention. And so we want to be careful. Everything is moved around because of a pop-up ad here, but we want to be careful that he's spreading the right word. We don't want him taking sides on an issue that aren't aligned with the party right now. But if a year ago the culture clashed between a billionaire used to controlling his corporate fiefdom and a new administration attuned to public opinion came as a shock, Now everyone involved understands the stakes. He enjoys kind of that kingmaker role, said a person familiar with Musk's political operation. Oh, everyone enjoys that. Part of being a kingmaker is making sure everybody in the world knows that you're the king. Vance and White House AI czar David Sachs, who's close to Vance and Musk, declined to comment. Musk did not respond to requests for comment. President Trump pledged to cut waste, fraud, and abuse in our bloated government, and the administration is committed to delivering on this pledge for the American people, said White House spokesman Davis Ingle. Second time we've heard from him today. Trump officials, including Vance, Sachs, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, and Taylor Budowich, a former White House Deputy Chief of Staff, sought a reconciliation on the grounds that it would be better for the country if the right's two most prominent figures got along, the people interviewed for this story said. Musk, for his part, has emerged having learned some lessons, including understanding that the government doesn't run like his business. Does he really understand that now? Best to avoid politics where possible, he told podcaster Nikhil Kamath recently, describing it as a blood sport, which I thought he liked. Musk has said he is unlikely to take on another project like the U.S. Dodgy service, which he never really took on in the first place. His signature cost-cutting venture, which didn't cut any costs, which fell far short of his promise to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget. The program continues in decentralized form, Trump administration officials and Musk allies have said, with a small number of people in the White House working on streamlining the design of government services and former Dodgy members embedded as full-time workers within an array of federal agencies. To some veterans of government reform, Musk's Dodgy is not a failed experiment, but a lasting wound. The entire development world crushed, said Max Stier, or Steyer, perhaps, S-T-I-E-R, the chief executive of the Partnership for Public Service, which describes the effort as Godzilla rampaging through the city. Focusing on the gap between the promised savings and the actual results, he argued, misses the deeper damage. It's wrong to say he promised $2 trillion and he didn't make it, Steyer said. He promised $2 trillion and blew up the place. He slammed our whole government into reverse. Yet Musk is buoyed by a chorus in Silicon Valley and among remaining government allies who argue that his effort achieved a higher goal, fundamentally reforming the workings of government, according to 5 of the people. The effort, they argue, helped eradicate taboos in Washington, normalizing aggressive hiring and firing, expanding the use of untested technologies, and lowering resistance to boundary-pushing startups seeking federal contracts. In short, he made it possible for the government to run more like a company. I don't think so. Dumb companies, I guess. That's probably true. That's the cultural shift, the shift in the Overton window, said Isaiah Taylor, CEO of a nuclear company, Valar Atomics, referring to the political theory describing how a radical idea can become acceptable. The result, said Taylor, who was close to aspects of Dodgy, is a new urgency injected into government agencies. We can actually allow American builders to move. Okay, sure. Next up, from first buddy to a falling out. And that'll take us to the end of the show, I guess. Soon after Trump's victory, Musk, who put more than $288 million towards electing GOP candidates during the 2024 cycle, began spending his days in Palm Beach, Florida. The billionaire traipsed around Mar-a-Lago, referring to himself as the first buddy while plotting the future Department of Government Efficiency, an effort Trump has hailed as the potential Manhattan Project of our time. You know, it did blow up a lot of things and kill a lot of people. So maybe. The outside group would be run by Musk and biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy. Remember when he actually had a hand in all of this? And report to Budget Office Director Russell Vought, a White House official who had long advocated for radical government cuts. Dodgy was the culmination of an ethos Musk had brought to his companies, where he'd cut large numbers of employees briskly, sometimes achieving wildly ambitious goals, as he drew lawsuits and skirted regulatory guardrails. Despite that track record, seasoned operators in Washington were skeptical that Dodgy could have the same slash-and-burn effect, assuming that Musk would be bogged down by bureaucratic processes and red tape. And perhaps that was a mistake. to assume that. They were wrong. Swiftly after inauguration, Dodgy began an unprecedented sweep through federal agencies, culling the federal workforce, hoovering up data, and dismantling entire organizations, including, of course, USAID. It turned to creative methods. Do you think they were creative rather than destructive? I don't know. Creative methods to end some federal grants. It stopped payments from going out. I guess that's creative in a way. In February, Musk brandished a chainsaw at the Conservative Political Action Conference to brag about his cost-cutting strategy. And don't forget that was given to him by the then newly elected president of Argentina, who has since come begging for a $20 to $40 billion bailout and gotten it. But anyway, cool chainsaw. But the Tesla CEO's work proved deeply unpopular, and the company's stock price plunged amid protests in front of his showrooms. Musk's hard-charging style alienated those around him, including some of his dodgy recruits, who felt he had gone too far, particularly in breaking policies around extracting and manipulating government information. According to two of the people familiar with the workings of Dodgy, his efforts to persuade Congress to issue legislation to support his changes were largely rebuffed. He's used to being the emperor, said another Musk associate, speaking on condition of anonymity, but he wasn't treated with much respect in Congress, and he doesn't do politicking. Well, then I guess he's just in the wrong place. All right, well, we're about halfway through that profile as well. Just wanted to get that one on the record, and I think we read a little under half of the profile of Russell Vogt at the end of last week. 3 people, I guess, to keep an eye on. Moving parts. It's a 3-body problem. You know what I'm saying. Time now, though, to hand it over to Justice Putnam and the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I guess if you think of justice and a cookbook and a speakeasy, there's your 3 bodies. But it's not a problem. No problem. Listen up.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, looks like he's all ready to give a little extra attention to the DOJ being caught spying on Julie K. Brown, top Epstein investigative journalist, before the pedo sex trafficker's death. And hey, a lot more, of course, from around the country and around the world, and probably doing it with a healthy voice, too, so stay tuned.